Hey Bisonhawk, this is Barking Madly. I've been following your crawfish little story here, and just wanted to give a little bit of input in it. I don't have any experience with using or with growing lobsters, crabs, or crayfish, but I have some experience doing some of the similar stuff you guys have talked about. One of my previous jobs, we actually used a small fridge to do exactly what you guys are doing, which is, pump cold water outside of something. Just wanted to give you a heads up. You had mentioned the coils on the back. Oh, here's a small fridge. I'm not sure how obvious it is, but the coils that are on the back side here, this one doesn't have any, I don't think, but the coils on the back side, those are how the fridge cools itself off. So you don't want to put the coils inside there, like Mike was saying. You want to put them in. You want to put your tubes in the front of the fridge and your coils on the inside. My suggestion on that is to put copper tubing on the inside, because that way the copper actually is a better conductor of heat or cool, and it'll help. You can also run it through a gallon of water. That way the water is constantly getting cooled off, and you've got direct liquid to metal conduction, so you get the really cold water coming out of there. Like you were saying, depending on what you're running, you might want to avoid using, putting your coils up in the freezer part. But at any rate, that's ideas on the cooling. As far as banding and strapping your crawfish or crayfish, I'm from Michigan, we call them crayfish. And knowing what I know about them compared to lobsters, I have a feeling that those, he was talking about, let's see, do I have a ruler here? Those little, those bands he was showing look like they're about 5/8 of an inch in diameter or so. And I mean, most crayfish I've ever seen have, their claws at most are 1/4 inch. I posted this suggestion over on on Mike's webpage, but I don't know whether you've ever used it, but heat shrink tubing that you use for wires and stuff, it comes in all kinds of different, diameters and whatnot, and you can just heat it up a little bit with a hairdryer or whatnot, and it'll shrink down. And like I said, if you have small fish, you can use small pieces of tubing and whatnot. Also, as for your pump, that little gravity pump that you were talking about there, I'm not so sure that would work. But what you can get are aquarium, what they call canister fillers. I'm over at marinedepot.com, and these things will do 150 gallons at a time, and these things are designed to pump water around. That filter you've got there, I used to use them at a 40-gallon tank, and they work really good for that, but they're designed to suck a little bit of water up using that big bent tube that you had there, and then just let gravity push the water down. You want something that can actually pump water at a pretty good rate, and these canister pumps, I don't know if you can see where I'm. What they are is there's a, obviously a canister with a bunch of filter media in it, and then it uses the same style of, with that little magnetic impeller on the inside, but they can pump water 6, 8, 10 feet pretty easily without a problem. So that'd be something to look at. And then I don't know whether haven't heard many people on here talk about it, but there's a website called McMaster.com. McMaster Car is the actual guys. If you want anything, whether you want hose fittings, you want soldering, staples, you want temperature recorders, wire cloth, plastic mesh, electrical stuff, wood, steel, ceramic, whatever you want, they've got it. It's just mcmaster.com. I'll put a link in here, but at any rate, if you need any oddball fittings or anything like that, that's the other place to go. So, but at any rate, yeah, if you can use copper tubing inside of your fridge, put it in through the door like Mike was saying, and I'd suggest a different pump than the one you're doing, because you'll want to get a little more volume through it. The only downside to those canister pumps is if you have them on the floor and your tank if you have, let's say, your tank, I don't have a good dog, but if you have your, using this as if you have this as your table and you have your tank or your filter down here and the tank up top here, when you pop the top on here, all the water will siphon out, and that sucks. I mentioned that in my one comment there. You've got to be careful you don't siphon stuff. But anyway, if you put the canister right up next to the filter or up next to the tank, you should be fine. And like I said, maybe using heat shrink tubing might be something good for you, because it's dirt cheap. All you need is a hairdryer or maybe a cigarette lighter. You can heat it, you can melt it, or maybe even just cut the claws off. I don't know whether crawfish need to use their claws to eat or whatnot, but there's not a whole lot of meat on them. So anyway, hope that helps out. Hey, I forgot to mention one other thing that I talked about in one of the other shall not be infringed to other posts. If you're trying to stay on 12 volts so that you can stay using solar, these are 12 volt coolers. They actually use acoustics sound to keep things cold, and they're not super cold. Like this one, it says it'll get it down to 45 degrees below the ambient temperature. Well, if it's 110 out, that means it's getting down to what, 65, 70 degrees. So it's not super great, but then again, if it's 110 out during the day, that means it's probably 80 or 90 at night, so you can getting down to 35, 40 degrees. So probably cool enough. But this one's like 150 bucks, and they do a pretty good job. There's no moving parts. There's no Freon to worry about. So on something like that, it might be something for you to look at. And also, you know, these things run on 12 volts, and you can get adapters so that it'll run on 110. And if you want to, you can actually reverse the connection on it, and you can actually get it to heat stuff up too. So anyhow, just something else. Later.